we become this space in Detroit, like with the Lions. Like now, we we kind of overthink things way too much. You know what I'm saying? Like with this team, and instead of just saying, you know what, we the way we play, we're gonna just line up, and if we play the way we have been the last 2.5 years with this team, going on 3 years, we shouldn't have any issues. You know what I'm saying? I mean, not issues as meaning it will be some pushback. Hey, this is the NFL playoffs, Ted. You know that this is better than we do. I mean, this is NFL play. So every team deserves to be here, man. At this point of the season, it's all about matchups. I feel, that to me, if I'm well, Walt corrected me out, like he was saying, if you're a football fan, I think this is a bad matchup for the Commanders. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? To me, you know what I mean? I think Tampa Bay was kind of like sit and duck out there, kind of turnover prone, undisciplined on defense. You know what I'm saying on some things, and it wound up biting them in the ass playing around with Jaden Daniels like that. So I think the Lions are a little bit more well coached. Not a little bit, a lot more well coached than Todd Bowles Bucks. You know what I'm saying? I just don't see a Dan Campbell ran team, Aaron Glenn ran team, Ben Johnson ran team. These guys gonna be in tip top. I had somebody say today, well, I didn't like the rest. We had too much rest. And it's like, are you kidding me? I think that was just what the doctor ordered with this team, man. You know what I'm saying? I don't think, and Ted probably can attest to this. I don't want to take your time, so I'm just
Uh,
gonna let you come in, and then we'll talk about the health and the other things like that. So
No, I agree. You take the time whenever you can get it, Ashante, because that time's valuable, man. It's what you do with it. It's how you progress, how you practice. And Dan Campbell, he's going to have a plan. Those guys will have a plan. So you feel good about that. But it's critical for them to get Anzalone back and some of the guys, getting Montgomery. We can talk about, obviously, dive into that injury because that's an impactful injury. This is rare that you get a guy coming back from a high grade MCL like this and actually
yeah.
coming back to push to play when 3 surgeons recommended surgery. This is one we can dive down deep into.
Oh boy, wow.
please do, please do, because it's funny that you guys on your own transitioned to that because that was the very first injury I wanted to ask you about, Ted. David Montgomery.
Mhm.
It was odd to me that people were so just oh hum and so casual about his injury and oh yeah, he'll be back soon. I was worried about it. I felt it was unnecessary to really push him back right now. I felt like
Mhm.
you ride the young horse. It was his time. You guys a couple other complimentary backs who can come in and spell him from time to time. Should there be any level of like legitimate concern for David Montgomery?
Yeah. Short answer is yeah. You have to have concern. But I'm not saying the Detroit Lions don't have that. I think Dan Campbell, I think their medical staff, their performance staff, Brad Holmes, I know a lot of these guys. They're smart. So you have a couple things going for you if you're on the Detroit side. It's a veteran offensive play caller. You got Ben Johnson. You got Jared Goff, a good game manager. You have a phenomenal offensive line. And you got Jameer. You have all these things. And then you have great skill positions. You have tight end. You have wide receivers. You have guys that can spill this. When you dive down into the complexity of that actual injury, an MCL for a running back at the NFL level is a very, very legitimate injury because of the lateral load. So you look at the mechanics of what the running back has to do. It's the lateral shifting, it's the planting. We talk about lower leg mechanics. We go through off seasons full of literally training movement skills and putting in the proper. We're talking about degrees, changing at a degree of a lower leg angle by 1 degree because that's the difference of creating space of 6 inches, and that's the difference in scoring a touchdown or taking a 3-yard loss. So you look at some of those things. It's the deceleration mechanics I would be concerned with when you have a high grade MCL, which he does. I've heard he came out and kind of said he's not going to wear a brace. That I don't know what conversations they would have. That brace literally protects your knee from shifting laterally. So when you have a component of a medial collateral ligament, that's there to protect you. Now, I'm sure he's going to have a significant tape job underneath. There's ways to protect that without that big bulky brace. So I get that. But if I'm Ben Johnson, and I know Ben, he's a genius. Ben is probably thinking you ride the hot hand, you ride Jameer. So for me, I've talked about it on a couple other podcasts. You got Jameer, he's a Ferrari. I used to say, I was like, well, yeah, then you got Montgomery, he's a Bentley, he's a Rolls Royce. I'll go Detroit strong. He's an F-150, right? Or he's an F-350. Give that guy the ball and let him go laterally. No, get him straight down the hill because he's going to run linear. He's got to run in a straight line. You take out the components of potentially shifting and then exacerbating that injury so you can protect him within the box, inside zone, maybe an outside zone, but don't stretch him too much and don't get him out into a lot of space. Let Jameer do his thing, get the passing game involved, let Jared control the game like he does as a manager, let Ben get creative with his play calling, and let that offensive line create space. But Montgomery should be getting downhill. He should be running linear, straightforward, north and south. That's where he can live, and that's where you can protect that injury. But I do think, well, you made a great point. You let Jameer take the load. If you have to, you get him more involved. But if I'm thinking about this from a game management standpoint, I'm trying to protect Montgomery for the following week, for the championship game, and then 2 weeks after that, the Super Bowl. Not that you can't lose this game. It's not like you can overlook this, but use him as little as possible while you allow him to create that healing for the next couple weeks.
Ashanti?
Yeah, Ted, man, that was some great insight on that because I was kind of wondering that too. Like, I'm torn. I'm like you. Because to me, I'm thinking to myself, man, he need to sit out at least one other week. Because I think, no disrespect to Commander fan, I know they're gonna kill me for saying this, but I don't think it not having David Montgomery, we could beat the Commanders without David Montgomery, in my opinion. You know what I'm saying? I don't feel like, oh my God, he's got to play this game. Like Ted said, I think it's an important game. Obviously, we feel like everything's riding on this game. We got to advance, obviously. But yeah, man, Craig Reynolds and Jamar Jefferson, if they choose to go that route, is more than capable. You know what I'm saying? Of picking up the slack for a game. Yeah, I'm concerned, and maybe I was thinking about this too. Maybe goal line situations, you know what I'm saying, where he could just, like get behind somebody and kind of lunge forward, that type of thing, or short yardage, or 3rd and 2, or you know what I'm saying, or 2nd and 2. We just trying to move the chains and keep the possession, that type of thing. So, yeah, obviously we know. I know for a fact that this team is without David Montgomery, they can beat the Commanders. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that's not even a question. I don't even think that's a question in our. I think David Montgomery wants to play. I think that's part of it too. They probably, you'd have to chain him down basically to say, dude, you're not playing. He probably like, F you, I am playing. That type of thing. All that hard work the last 2 years. Coming here, change of culture, being in Chicago, busting his ass with the Bears for, 4 or 5 years, have highly productive, and then to have your season go down the tube basically by having an injury like this, where maybe a difference. So maybe if we're the Tennessee Titans, maybe obviously no playoffs. And you could say, well, he could sit out for the season, but it's bigger stakes here, bigger fish to fry. And I do think that David Montgomery is playing a part of it too. I think he just wants to get out there, man. You know what I'm saying, and play. And the best thing to, change your psyche as a player is to go out there the next game and play. Especially to try to overcome an injury, get your confidence. You know what I'm saying? Trust that knee, that leg. And we'll see. Like you said, I'm with bated breath. The first time he gets hit, man, I'm just gonna be like, oh my God, is this, So hopefully they limit him. I just hope it's not a heavy dose, that type of thing. I just don't want to be wondering if he's hurt every time he gets the ball and goes down. And you got big Deron Payne, coming lunging at him and fall, what I'm saying, falling for Jonathan Allen, those guys, Jerzon Newton, they got a big, line in Washington, man. So we'll see how it go. You know what I'm saying? We'll see, and I believe that too. Another thing is I think we have a competent enough man, coaching staff where they wouldn't put this man out there and put his career in jeopardy, that type of thing too. So
that's a good point, Ashanti. I'm glad you brought that up, and the other side of that too, because you look at Montgomery's background. Number one, you got to recognize the fact this dude is tough. And number two, he cares enough because he's in a good culture. You look at what a positive culture does in the NFL, it gets guys to want to be out there with their brothers and with their coach. They want to be out there. You don't think that dude wants 10 carries, 20 carries? He'll take whatever he can get. He's probably knocking on Dan and Ben's office right now and saying, hey, I'm ready. You better not spill me. I'm ready. And that's what you get because of the culture that Brad Holmes, that Dan has built. You look at even Sheila, they've built a culture of winning. That's a culture in the NFL. And you look at these guys, that's what you want. I mean, that guy's hurt. That's a significant injury. 3 surgeons out of 4 told him to get surgery and shut it down. And he went to a 4th. That does not happen. That's a high-grade MCL. I have a lot of respect for this guy. I have a lot of respect for this team because of how they built this culture. And that tells me everything I need to know. They're ready to show up and go to work.
Yep. Facts. And I just want to add one other thing, Walt. Just what Ted said. And I think, like I said, I named the Tennessee Titan. I just think if it was a different organization, Cleveland Browns, he probably would be like shutting it down, that type of thing. He wouldn't have tried to come back, but he was eager to come back, like you said, from the start because he went so many times to get these opinions, you know what I'm saying, until he got the answer he wanted. So, yeah, Walt, I'm suit that,
and that's kind of scary.
Yeah, man.
That's kind of
you know what I'm
scary,
saying? That's what I'm saying. It's like playing the game. Yeah, it's fine and dandy. Yeah, he back. Okay. Yeah, high five. Let's everybody group hug, that type of thing. But when it's time, when he get hit the first time, I'm talking about in game, get smashed, that type of thing. You just hope that he's not hurt. That's all. So
got it.
Yeah.
All right, so if we go through a little bit more of this injury report now, Terrion Arnold, I think aside from, people weren't necessarily expecting Montgomery to come back anytime soon like that, but Terrion Arnold does play a position that has been kind of ravaged by injuries over the past few weeks. Him and that foot, what do you guys know about that?
Yeah, this is an interesting one, Walt, because when you look at this, number one, you got to look at Terry McLaurin and who we're going against. So you look at, are you going to shift Meek? Are you going to put him on him and let him carry him for the game? My thought is they probably do that. That's probably what AG's thinking. You look at Terrion, this is a significant injury for a couple of reasons. Number one, the rotational aspect as a defensive back. You look at what they have to do, the force into the ground. So there's 2 factors here. When you're on turf, especially when you're on an artificial surface, there's the interaction between the actual surface and then the footwear. And then within your cleat, there's an interaction between your foot and the actual footwear. So how much are you shifting? That places a lot of stress on the foot. So you look at this. This is one of those injuries that can bite. And we call that, we say bite, where he has one wrong move. He rotates, he shifts, his foot gets stuck and caught in the turf. That's one of those ones where you might see him have to come out for 2 to 3, 4 plays or an entire series, depending on the severity of it. That's what scares me. And a lot of these, you don't want to numb them up. There's certain complexities, and I don't know this. I'm not in the medical room. I'm not in there, so I haven't evaluated this exact injury, but you typically don't want to numb these injuries up because you don't want to make them so numb that the athlete doesn't feel if it's exacerbating or getting worse, and you can protect them. So that's one of those complexities here. You don't want to throw them out there with just no pain medication because you want to give them a little bit of an edge, but you also don't want to go in there and site inject this and numb it up. So there's a couple things to pay attention to here, especially once again, because it's an artificial surface. Your foot can get caught way easier than it would on a natural surface. So there's a couple things you got to keep an eye on here. That's what would worry me. But I think from a game plan perspective, you have very smart coaches. You've said it, Ashante, you've said it, Wall, you've said it. We have great coaches in Detroit. There are some legitimate head coaching candidates. AG should be a head coach here in a couple weeks. He's going to have a game plan. And I look at Amik as probably the guy that's going to travel with McLaurin. And you look at how you can protect him and put him in a shell, and you protect him with maybe coverage over the top. There's ways that you can go into it with a game plan to keep him safe.
Yeah. And on top of that, you also have 3 quality safeties.
Now,
100%. Which is tremendous.
Let me ask Ted a question. Now, Ted, you seen when Terrion, I was like, I threw my hands up. I couldn't believe it was him too that got hurt. Now, it looked like his foot turned the wrong way, like a hyperextension type thing. Was it like hyperextend? Do you know, like, Was it a hyperextended? What I'm trying to say, because it looked like it just turned funny to me. It didn't look like your leg or foot was supposed to turn that way.
So in the foot, you look at this as long as it's not an ankle, because that's a completely different conversation. But when you look at the actual structure of the foot, the first thing that makes contact, so we talk about dissipation of force. Your foot interacts with the ground, and that kinetic energy, it has to come up somewhere. And you're talking about big, strong dudes that are taking on brunt force, and they're taking on literally thousands of pounds of force and pressure. So once your foot gets caught, the breakage point has to come somewhere. That's why you try to get that breaking point from natural surface or some of the artificial surfaces that we can use technology with now. So that cleat, when it gets stuck in there, you worry about a couple of things. One's the most common one is a Jones fracture. So you look at the fifth metatarsal, you look at the structure of the foot. The foot is composed of a ton of ligaments and a ton of muscle. So there's legitimate muscle within the foot to where you grip, you squeeze the shoe, you squeeze to grip. And those things have to interact. So you look at connective tissue, you look at bone, hard tissue, and then you look at the actual muscular tissue that's surrounding all those joints and the complexities of the foot. And then you travel up. Then the kinetic force goes to the ankle, then it goes to the knee. So you look at those things, almost like the David Montgomery thing. Force is going from the foot to the ankle to the knee. So you look at that kinetic energy, it's traveling out somewhere. That's why the lower leg angles, putting your foot in the proper positioning, getting the right cleat, the right fit, all those things are literally dramatically important, because they can be the difference of having a guy sustain a season-ending injury and not. So the equipment manager, Timmy O'Neill in Detroit, those guys, they're all highly qualified to do what they do. They put them in the right footwear, they put them in the right equipment, but those are the things that pay dividends. You better make sure that you take care of those details. So when that rotation happens, that's what you worry about. You worry about that intrinsic musculature and those connective tissue, those points within the foot, and specifically the fifth metatarsal. That's what your big fear is. Liz Frank injuries, once again, the connective tissue, those are things that spring up. They're super painful, Ashante. Like, you deal with guys like that, it is one of the most painful things you'll deal with, because what do? You step every single play. So every time you're putting your foot into the ground, you feel that pain, you feel that sharp sting, and you're like, man, is my foot going to blow up and implode? That's what those players are experiencing sometimes. So that's the fear. But once again, you don't want to over-medicate a player, because you need them to feel so that they know if the injury is getting worse, and they can communicate with the medical staff and with the docs and the orthopedics, because that's a critical variable. You don't want this injury getting worse.
Great stuff.
Wow,
Great
that's
stuff.
amazing, Ted. Wow, okay.
Yeah. And I think if we go through a little bit more of the injury report, Ennis Rakestraw has been kind of a mystery all season
Yeah,
as
man.
far as what's been going on with him. So he's listed as questionable. I'm pretty sure he did practice throughout the week. Not sure what to really expect from him. You're talking about throwing a rookie out there in the fire, literally in the fire. I do understand Washington doesn't have a lot out there on the perimeter outside of Terry McLaurin. They do have Luke McCaffrey, the youngest of a big clan of McCaffrey boys over there, man. That guy got a lot of sons out of there playing football. But yeah, there's not really a lot going on for Washington to really challenge us deep. But throwing a rookie out there in this type of situation is pretty dicey. I will say that. Pat O'Connor, who's given us all he's had the past few
Oh
weeks,
man, love
he's
Pat
out.
O'Connor, man.
Yeah, definitely. He's out dealing with a calf injury. And then Taylor Decker, personal reasons. We never really know exactly what the whole personal reason thing is, but we just take it as veteran needed some time off, leave the guy alone, mind your own damn business. So
The
here's what it
Zeitler
is, man.
thing kind of came up here, within the last 24 hours. That kind of sucks that Zeitler is not going to play in this game. You know what I'm saying? Now let me ask you a question, Walt. Like, is it mahogany time again? You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Yep.
It's
There's
passing the
mahogany.
torch.
Yeah, more than capable. So
yeah.
And yeah,
Let's get to one more injury though.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I just wanted to get to one more injury. The biggest name out of them all, the one name I think Lions fans have been clamoring for ever since the whole Dallas day. This right here, I want to get this from you because I've seen some listen to some doctors on some podcasts ever since this injury occurred. Everyone I've heard say you're talking about guys not coming back till next November, maybe December, even if he is miraculously able to play within the first 2 to 3 weeks of next season, you can't really expect anything from him adjustment wise.
Yeah.
Would there honestly be any true benefit to bringing this guy back before you honestly should?
Benefit? No. I mean, the benefit is you win the Super Bowl, right? I mean, so you go with a franchise that's never had the opportunity to do that. This is a once in a generation type of moment. So do you capitalize on it? And once again, it's almost like that Montgomery situation. You don't think Aiden's sitting there and sitting outside Brad and Dan's office saying, I'm ready. I'm ready.
Hmm.
Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Just get me there. And you love the players like that. Once again, the culture and everything that they built there. So there's a couple things here. You got to look at the healing. You look at the bone healing first and foremost. So there's certain things you can do. There's supplementation. There's prescriptions like drugs like Forteo. There's things that you can do and prescribe for just the general bone healing. And then nutritionally, you're trying to get rid of any inflammation. So you're putting on an anti-inflammatory diet. You're going through all these things, and I guarantee a guy like Aiden is literally doing everything. You talk about those 1% details. He's doing it. And this is a leader of the team. So do you want him out there? Absolutely. Now, I would also say, Walt, you made the point a couple minutes ago about Montgomery. They're not going to put him out there if there's an undue or unnecessary risk to this athlete's long-term future, because you look, he is the face of the franchise, especially on the defense. Don't jeopardize his future, his career. And I think he's got a smart family. He's a smart kid. I don't think they'll do that. So is it out of the question? I remember when it first happened, it was right at that time frame. You look at the Super Bowl, it's February 9th or whatever it is. It's literally right at the cusp of the timeline to where it would be it's possible. It's possible. Is it likely? No. But have I seen crazier things? Absolutely. I mean, Adrian Peterson came back from an ACL in like 5.5 months. So you look at some of the things that genetic freaks like Aiden Hutchinson can do. Is it possible? Yes.
Three of them.
But that is a big injury. So the other thing you worry about here too is compensatory actions. When you have a catastrophic injury like that, you break multiple bones, you go to emergency surgery, that rehab process, your body goes into shifting and saying, I have to heal this site. Your body floods it with everything, blood, oxygen, everything you eat, all the nutrition that you bring in, everything is going to healing that anatomical site. The compensation that occurs as you go through the early parts of rehab, is he strong enough to be a fully functional Aiden Hutchinson? So what I mean by that is he ready to go even 80, 90% of what Hutch is? Is he ready to go out there and compete? Because has he been able to train his non-affected limbs? Has he been able to do these things on the opposite side? And has he trained and strengthened so that he's conditioned and ready to go through a full football game? Those are the issues that you have to answer. Those are the questions that you have to make sure you're confident, because what you don't want to see is him get caught in a precarious position just because he's deconditioned and he has another catastrophic injury on his healthy side because he gets caught out of position. So you have to be worried about really the full gamut here. It's not just, hey, is his leg healed? It goes well beyond that.
Yeah, I think that was the main issue I had with it. You know, everyone saw him running in water. They saw him sprinting down the sidelines, and none of that is really conducive with being a
No.
defensive end in
Yeah.
football. Playing with your
Right.
hand in the
Right.
dirt,
Right.
whether not knowing exactly which is the load bearing leg, but there's way more that goes into it than just it's like tearing your ACL and then somebody sees you at LA Fitness on a treadmill walking and they're saying, "Oh, well, he's fine because he's on the treadmill walking." No, I'm a pro athlete. Like there's more to it than that, and I just think it's ridiculous, man. I think that this team is good enough to win the Super Bowl without him. This even maybe not next season. We don't know exactly how the rest of the NFL is going to pan out heading into next year, but for right now, this team is. You can call us homers or whatever, but we all believe this is the best overall football team in the league right now, and they're good enough to win it this year without him and without Montgomery. And something I would like to transition into is the coaching staff, because that's something that's been kind of a hot topic, hot button
Yeah.
topic as of late. If they lose both coordinators, and we've heard rumors of this happening, and it's possible, we understand it's the
Yep.
nature of the business. You're good people come, bad teams come to get you guys. That's just how it is. But what position do you think that? And I'm asking both of you fellas this: moving forward, I think they're in damn good hands. Even if they lose both coordinators, because I think for one reason they're going to promote from within, more than likely. They played it smart during the whole trade deadline. They didn't give away valuable draft assets to rent a player who it looks like over the long run we didn't even need them anyway. We stayed on a hot streak. So they have all their draft assets. They get a bunch of people back next season that were hurt this year. Aleem McNeil and a ton of other people. Makai Wingo,
Yeah,
rotational
Marcus
guys are coming
Davenport
back.
maybe. Well,
They've
he's only
got
signed for
draft
a
pick.
year though. But
Yep,
yeah.
yep, yep. But they're so deep that they have the opportunity to bring Davenport back. And I think Davenport is probably a guy that looks at it as, hey, listen, third team, X amount of years in the league. How many more opportunities am I going to get? This franchise shows some actual love and belief in me. I'm going to stay. And I like Davenport. I think as long as Davenport is healthy and he's on the field,
Yep. Yep.
he's a
He
really good
raised hell
player.
out there. Yep.
The issue's just
Yep.
been that,
Yep.
yeah, exactly. But Ted, so what do you think about the team in general moving forward if they were to lose both
Yeah, to
coordinators?
replace both coordinators, I've been in a couple situations throughout my career where we've had to do that. It's hard. It's hard. So I think number one, admit that, have some self-awareness and say, this is going to be a challenge. It's going to be a struggle. We're going to have to learn. You got a guy like Ben who's been very loyal. He's stuck around. He knows Dan. He's very loyal to Dan Campbell. It's been amazing. And then you look at the opposite side, a guy like AG, not just from the football IQ, but how he leads. Like, he's a leader of men. You look at that guy, how he brings juice. He's just as impactful as a Dan Campbell, because you don't think he's rallying the troops when they lose half their roster on the defense and they're dealing with all these catastrophic injuries. That guy's leading from the front. Can you replace those guys? Yes. Can you replace them exactly and identically? No. So I think number one is taking a step back and being aware. So that's Dan Campbell, Brad Holmes. But then you look at what they've done. So how the Detroit Lions have constructed this team, I love it, because I've been in Philadelphia. We did a very similar thing. You build the offensive line, you build the defensive line. You obviously need some skill positions and some other things to work out. But how they've constructed this team, it's not just the talent in the personnel. Obviously, that's ultimately important. You need players that are out there making the plays. But then you look at Hank Fraley, you look at Terrell Williams, who I know, like all these guys, they have great coaches at all these positions. So just like the team has had that next man up mentality, it's going to shift to the same thing. And when you have a guy at the helm like Dan Campbell, and when you have a guy behind the scenes like Brad Holmes, and you have that ultimate confidence, it's earned confidence too. That's the important indicator. It's earned because they have done this. They built it, and they built it through the fire. They've had adversity. They've brought it together. They've connected, and they've grown through that, and they've become a legitimate Super Bowl contender. That doesn't just go away in 1 year, even if you lose those coordinators. Now, is it easy? No. You have to identify the best talent. Do they bring in somebody from the outside? That's the question, because there is a transparency there where, do you have the next man up mentality? Great. But can you give someone some more control, but then bring in an offensive coordinator who might be out looking for a job, or someone who's up and coming? That's what they have to figure out, because you do have to get the best coaches. Coaches in this league are ultimately important, just like players, but they have talented coaches in that staff. And you look at a guy like Dave Phipp, I worked with in Philly. Dave Phipp's not going anywhere for the most part. I mean, that's, I guess, the bad thing for special teams coaches. They don't get head jobs. But you look at those guys stability-wise, he's done a heck of a job. You look at all those coordinators. It's not just O&D. It's special teams has done a really good job this year. So you look at all those guys, there's going to be some continuity. If they have to replace both those guys, it's going to be tough. But can an organization like Detroit do it with the leaders they have? I think they can.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Ted too. As far as I do think, man, I think the one that I'm gonna miss, man, really is Aaron Glenn. I mean, obviously, I like Ben Johnson too. I mean, I don't want to just slight him at all, but I think this is why to have to lose, arguably our best defensive player, our top two defensive players, and then some role players, as you mentioned, Makai Wingo, Malcolm Rodriguez, not having Enos Rakestraw most of the season. This season felt like it was going to be a waste, man. To be honest with you, the minute Aiden Hutchinson went down, it was just like the season's over. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that's basically. I remember Monday vividly thinking like this season's not going to end well. You know what I'm saying? Where Aiden was out, and then ultimately, we were wrong. The people who thought that, but it was a man. It was just a tremendous rally the troops, change it up, the game plan to our strengths. Because let's be honest, Aiden Hutchinson still leads this team in sacks. Okay, and he hasn't played since October. Man, it's unbelievable how that stat line is like a non-factor. It doesn't even matter. Like we don't have a guy with double-digit sacks on this defensive line. You know what I'm saying? And that's a key stat or a key part of just team chemistry, team building, building your elite quality, your elite status as a team. Every good team, right, has a pass rusher, right? And it's like it didn't phase this team, man. It's crazy. I mean, we still got our issues guarding certain positions. Obviously, mobile quarterback did that topic has came up, this week. Obviously, we're playing Jaden Daniels, but ultimately, this team has just shown, man, the next man up. The draft picks. I mean, just having like Makai Wingo was another one that was kind of like a body blow because it was like, okay, Makai Wingo's in there, a guy that we both pounded the table for during the draft, and we wound up getting him. And it was like he was starting to emerge, and then he got hurt, and it was like, what does Aaron Glenn have to do? You know what I'm saying? What does he's not getting rewarded by all of this great coaching. He's just getting more injuries, and it's like now he really had to really keep these guys together, man. And I think that's still a lot of people talk about it when they talk about this team, but I don't think they really appreciate it. You know what I'm saying? I just think that people think it's a given that players are automatically, the next guy will come up and he'll be good. Okay, we'll just Pat O'Connor, he'll be good. And Pat O'Connor was great. I remember he's not even playing this week. Remember Pat O'Connor against Green Bay? He was like he was shot out of a cannon, man. Pat O'Connor, he was probably yelling at Pat O'Connor on that graphic right there. You know what I'm saying? It's just how he was getting these guys motivated to play. It was amazing to watch. I'm gonna hate to see AG go, but that he deserves to be a head coach. He really does. I mean, he really does. We'll be doing him a disservice if we hold him back. And then Campbell, he kind of knows. He's kind of been kind of saying it. Not that he's leaving, but hey, this is the business. This is what happens. We'll be able to get through it. We got some guys. We got guys in house. Blah blah blah. So yes, I think that our next defensive coordinator, I think he's in the building, bro. I don't think that they're gonna go outside and get it. I'd be shocked if he left. And Kelvin Shepard is another guy that's been with this organization. And I remember how much he said that he liked it here and he liked that, on the hard night. I mean, it was all for camera, but he told a story about he was going to cut his hair. And then Campbell said, no, you ain't cutting your hair. I want the authentic Kelvin Shepard. I want you. I don't care about how, that doesn't matter to me. That really stuck out when he said that. That showed me that Dan Campbell's a player's coach and he's a coach's coach, man. And I really do think that our next coaches, if they leave, it's going to be a transition too. I worry about Jared Goff more with a new OC than our defense with a new DC. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I don't know if I sound crazy by saying that, but I'm going to miss AG more if I had to just rate it. But the trick plays, I'm being real honest. Sometimes it makes me cringe. Sometimes it really does. When they work, I'm sitting there pumping my fist, and it's fun to celebrate. I love it all. I love it. So that part of it, where, yeah, we might not have a swag to do a double reverse on 3rd and 2 inside our 20-yard line, that type of thing, but it may be more structured. So yeah, it happens, man. It happens. I mean, we grow accustomed, but we always say, Walt, on our show, year by year, your team changes. Year by year, situations change, the roster turnover. You know what I'm saying? So we'll be able to adapt. We'll get through it. If it happens. So
No, no, I agree 100%. And before we move on, I just want to ask Ted one more thing because maybe he has a little bit more
Yeah.
insight. Offensive coordinator, or just when Teddy Bridgewater, when they literally called him up and he had just won the state championship in Florida and called this man to come to the team, pretty much didn't understand how fans couldn't really read between the lines doing all that. Some fans took it as no confidence in Hooker. Some people took it as Goff may get injured. What were your thoughts on what happened?
Yeah, I think it's genius. Whether whoever pulled the strings on that one, whether it was Dan, Brad, whoever, and obviously Teddy's a well-liked individual. He's got a great reputation. People love him. But I think he's a coach in waiting. You look at what he's going to do. Can he be the quarterback coach? Can he be the coordinator? You look at Kellen Moore, who was in Detroit with me as a player. Kellen Moore is potentially going to get a head job here in a couple weeks. Kellen Moore was 2 years out of league when he became an offensive coordinator. So you look at that, it's not unheard of. In a player that's played at the quarterback position, I'm going to give them the utmost trust. If you can perform at the quarterback position in the NFL, you know how to diagnose defenses. You know how to build a game plan. You know how to look at everything that you need to, where you're putting in a game plan for your offense, and you know how the structure of the O-line works. You know everything. So for me, that was the first thing that kind of came to mind, and I like it because, number one, he's a well-liked individual. They look at him as a leader, as a guy, as a locker room guy, and I've seen it work with other players, the Josh McCowns of the world. Dan Orlovsky, before he went and became, ESPN, Dano, we hired him in LA. We actually brought him in as like this veteran player, but we were like, hey, Dan, we want you to be a coach. And he was going to become a coach. He ended up going the TV route, which is a good decision. But this happens all the time. I think when you look at those quarterbacks, that was my first thought, Wall. So that's a great point, because I think when you look at this, they're setting up for the future. And Sean McVay and I always had this problem when I was in LA with him. We got to the point where we started getting poached. Our staff just got rated every year. And he was like, how do we defend this? I said, we have to have the next man up. You have to have the QC coach, who's the next tight ends coach, and then he becomes the next offensive coordinator. You got to think like 3 to 4 years ahead of what's going to happen. And I think they're hopefully starting to do that. And I know Brad Holmes lived through that. He was in the building in LA with us. So you look at those guys, I think it's a really smart move on their part.
So pretty much it's a coaching farm system.
Mm-hmm. It's got to be.
So to speak.
Has to be.
Wow, Ted, that was great, man. Insight, man. I never even thought about Bridgewater being a coach. I really didn't. I mean, that makes
How about our
sense.
coach?
Like,
now, what do you guys think the odds are he becomes the OC or Scotty Montgomery? I've been saying it may be Scotty Montgomery soon. Scotty's been a head coach before, and he stated he does want to become a head coach again. So him, also Ingstrand, passing game coordinator.
Yeah,
those guys. So it's
Mark Brunell.
I seriously doubt it. Yeah, I think Mark seems to be one of those guys that really likes his job.
Yeah,
Like regardless of what he does for a living, the guy that just really likes what he does and doesn't want to do anything else. Because I'm pretty sure if Mark wanted to be an OC, he could have been an OC. People have probably offered him plenty of times. But that's decades of football knowledge right there.
Well, I see somebody in the chat too. They said this. They heard, Mark Brunell is going to go with Ben. That's the other side of this. You have to know when a guy like Ben, a guy like AG gets a job, there's an internal negotiation that they have. Now, number one, hopefully they're already having these conversations with Dan Campbell, and they're like, hey, Dan, I want to take this guy and I want to take this guy. I've been in those conversations. So they're having this internal dialogue and negotiation about, all right, I'll let you take this guy, because in the NFL, here's the beauty. Unless you're going to hire as an offense coordinator or defense coordinator or special teams coordinator, you can block anyone. So if Mark Brunell is going to go with Ben to be a passing game, they can block that. But they're probably having these conversations now. So this doesn't just stop at losing Ben, losing AG. It's who are they going to try to take with them, who wants to go with them, who's trying to advance their career. There's a lot of aspects and there's a lot of depth to all these conversations, and you got to keep that in mind. Now, I think I would agree with you, Wall. I think a guy like Mark is probably happy, and he's probably in a really good situation because Jared needs continuity, and that's the beauty of what Ben's been able to provide for him. And on the defense, the same thing with AG, with all those guys. You need continuity in this league. It happens far too often where it's this cyclical. Every year you got a new system. You have a new offensive defensive coordinator. How do you expect players to continue to grow and develop in those type of settings? So that's why you get behind the ball. That's why the Detroit Lions were smart. They were patient. They took their time. They said, we have our guys, we have our people. We're going to be patient. Let them build this, and look at where that's got them.
Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now I do want to get to someone who I know Shanti and I discussed during the off season, the ideas and the odds of him being a 1,100-yard back, 1,200-yard back. The season that Jahmyr Gibbs had overall is still strange because if you look at these numbers and the fact that he accumulated these numbers basically sharing touches with another running back for 75% of the season. Is anyone shocked that between St. Brown getting 1,000 yards and his touchdowns and um, Jameson Williams getting his yardage and his touchdowns and Laporta coming on strong middle towards the end of the season and Tim Patrick getting targets? And is anyone surprised that this guy still managed to break out the way he did, still sharing with all those other guys?
Shoot, I'm surprised. I mean, it speaks to the credit of how talented of a player this kid is. 6.7 yards per touch. You think about that at the NFL level? Well, Ashante, like that's incredible.
Yep,
You look at what he's been able to do. I didn't expect it. I'll be the first one to admit I did not expect this, especially with what they had with the two-headed monster that they had in the backfield. This to me is one of the most impressive storylines in the NFL.
Yep. Yeah, Ted's right. Took the words right out of my mouth, man. About I wasn't thinking like you said that big. You know what I'm saying? Like 20 touchdowns leading the NFL that big. You know what I'm saying? We knew we scouted him while we did shows, running back. The great debate was him or B. John Robinson. I remember we went round and round, about who's the better back, who's would be better for the Lions. We went through all the scenarios, but man, I didn't see 20 touchdowns, 6.7 yards per touch. And then, like you said, he was splitting time, man. Just imagine if he was maybe the feature back for the first 6 games of the season. He might have led the league in rushing, man. I don't think that's a stretch to even say that right now. Jahmyr Gibbs is tremendous, man. His ability to be able to find the first down yard marker in critical situations, man. I remember I counted in the first Minnesota game when we beat them in Minnesota. I just thought back and Gibbs made about 4 dagger runs, man, catching runs to get the first down, get out of bounds, keep, preserve time to get that winning field goal. I mean, Jahmyr Gibbs, his vision, his awareness, and I think he's learned, how to be, more like use the whole field, to his advantage, get in space, he can bounce. Because remember, you in college, high school, college, you could turn the corner and get loose, right? NFL, everybody fast. So I think he kind of had to learn that he maybe can't outrun everybody right off the bat. You know what I'm saying? He's got to maybe follow his lead, then make a move, cut back, then make a move. You know what I'm saying? Just a vision. Tremendous, man. Jahmyr Gibbs, my favorite player, my son's favorite player. My son goes, Dad, Jahmyr Gibbs is my guy. That's my guy. You know what I'm saying? So I love it, man. I love what he brings. I love the whole Sonic Knuckles. I love it all. Just, I mean, I'm just glad he's on our team. I think that he's changed the way the NFL is back looking at running backs. You know what I'm saying? Remember how they say you don't pay running backs, you don't draft them high, you don't, feature them on your team, and I think he's going to change that, man. I think that Lions going to take care of Jahmyr Gibbs. If next year may be the year he could be a very wealthy man. You know what I'm saying? That's how I'm looking at it if he keeps it up. And I think that these 3 games is just unlocks so many things. I think the Lions are so hard to defend because Jahmyr Gibbs is so effective and so the way you can use him. And I think it's gonna be a bear to beat this team, man, with him playing the way he's playing. So
yeah, I think to quote something that Marshall Faulk said a long time ago about running backs. You can be as talented as you want to be in high school, all state, all American. You can be as talented as you want to be in college, return punts, kickoffs, third down specialist, power back. When you get to the NFL, 85% of running backs have to reinvent themselves and learn how to play running back at the next level. And when you look at Gibbs, people were same thing with Aiden. I think last year, as far as his rookie season, people were a little bit impatient with him. And I kept saying all season, let him learn how to play running back at the next level. Just let him learn. Oh, he's breaking it outside too much. His vision's terrible. He'll never be good in the league. Like, fans are so eager to bury people. And when you look at the fact that he came back, he looks strong, he looks thicker. That's one thing I noticed about him from day
Upper
one.
body, yeah.
Yeah, the arms, the density in his thighs and everything. I go back and I look at him at Georgia Tech. He still had a little bit of doughboy to him. He got to Alabama, but he was still a terrific player at Georgia Tech. He was their best player as a freshman. Now, that doesn't say a lot about the football program at Georgia Tech right now, but no, he still had that doughboy type of body. He got in better shape at Alabama, was terrific at Alabama, was Bryce Young's most dynamic and dependable weapon. He got here, didn't like the way he looked at the combine. I thought his legs were a little skinny. I thought his body looked a little bit unbalanced. Got into the NFL weight room, got into the program, took his nutrition right. He also said Montgomery helped him along with that. He came back year 2, not year 3, not year 4 with some running backs. He came back year 2 looking completely different. And you can tell they put him in the right type of regimen because his whole structure still looks just like Jahmyr Gibbs overall body-wise from Georgia Tech to Bama, but he looks more denser, and he still looks fast. Like, you understand, I think Ted can attest to this. You know how you have some guys, the term, and I want you to explain this because I can't fully explain it. The term "he runs like an athlete," what does that really mean?
Yeah, there's a couple different levels to it. So when you look at a guy, especially like Jahmyr, obviously he's athletically gifted. So movement efficiency is what we're talking about. When you look at movement has 4 phases. 2 are linear and 2 are multi-directional. The 2 that are linear, one's acceleration. So you could be a phenomenal accelerator. Back in the day, Cooper Kupp was a decent accelerator, but he wasn't great, and he had top-end speed that was like 4.6 speed. We drafted Cooper Kupp, and our offense coordinator at the time, Matt LaFleur, he was pissed, and we were going through this. He's not fast enough. So we spent one whole year working on acceleration so he could create separation. You look at Jahmyr, you look at those lateral complexities. So multi-directional, there's 2 components. One is cutting, the efficiency that you can apply force into the ground to get your body shifted in the opposite direction, and then crossing over. Both of those are extremely important for a running back, a linebacker on the defensive side. You look at some of these positions, those are the factors that you're trying to train. And once again, 1 inch makes a world of difference in the NFL. We're talking about 1% better. If you can get a guy like Jahmyr who is explosive, he's got that tenacity, but he also has that twitch to where he hits it and he goes. His muscular system is designed to fire on all cylinders. But if you're firing and you're not in an optimal position, that's going to slow you down. That's going to limit how fast you can get away from the opponent and create that space and that separation. So you look at the efficiency. That's what we're talking about. You run like an athlete. You can move like an athlete, but you have this fluidity and you have this ability to establish proper angles, optimal angles. That's literally the difference between creating this much space and this much space. And you tell me if you're trying to get a third down pass and Jared's trying to fit it into a tight window, that's the difference between a 3rd and 4 completion and you move the chains. And that's the difference between a pass breakup and it's going the other way because you have to punt it. You're on the -40. So those things literally impact the game.
Yeah. Yeah. Man, we just somebody I think I think Lamar made the comment. Yeah, we got to get Ted on the payroll, man. Ted got to be like, dude, like the info is just incredible, man. I've learned so much just from Ted being with us, man. incredible, man. Your insight, your vernacular, you know the game. And I like talking to people who know the game, man. You know what I'm saying? It's just so refreshing to have someone know what the hell they talking about. That's what I'm trying to say. So amazing, man. You know
Definitely.
what I'm saying? You get so many clowns on every day that's getting paid to just spew out agendas and just like, Detroit sucks, basically. So, it seemed like they get paid to say that. You know what I'm saying? But
Go
just to have,
Yankees.
yeah, yeah, right. Cowboys, they talking
Yay
about Deion
Dodgers.
Sanders, you know what I'm saying? Getting the
Tiger
jobs.
Woods.
Right.
Just
So
throw every name in this one segment.
yeah, right. So
No, I
Yeah.
yeah.
appreciate it. It's the
No,
game
I
within a
get
game.
it though. I
Yeah.
do think the big piggyback off that, it is mainly about comfortability and muscle efficiency. I used to say that about Calvin Johnson. Like, for Calvin to be 6'5" and 240, there was
Mhm.
nothing awkward about him. He moved very fluid. When you watched him run fast, he looked like a gazelle. Everything was very smooth. I said the same thing about Malik Neighbors coming out. He ran like an athlete. We talked about Xavier Rhodes, who played cornerback for the Minnesota
Mhm.
Vikings back in the day. Like, he was 6'1", 6'2", 218 pounds, but he was built like an athlete, and he was actually built like a linebacker, but he ran like an athlete. And you look at the size; those guys can come in all types of size packages, whatnot. But when you have a very smooth, fluid athlete like that, it's very something special, very something great to watch too. I just love it.
Mhm.
But all right, so we can move on to a big name guy, Jared Goff. How important do you guys believe he has to be every step of the way? Because we got the bye. So instead of playing 4 playoff games in order to win the Super Bowl, we have to play 3. Typically, regardless of how great a quarterback is, during a playoff run, you're gonna have at least one dud. You can go through those New England Patriot runs. Tom has some duds. Vinatieri had to save their ass a few times. The defense had to save their ass a few times. It happens. You win as a team, you lose as a team. Percentage wise, how big of an impact do you think Jared has to honestly be? I mean, Ash has to honestly have on his team for them to be successful long term in this playoff run.
Oh man. I would say Jared Goff is I was just telling somebody this today. I trust Jared Goff way more than I trust Jalen Hurt, than I trust. Well, Sam Darnold's not in it, but you know what I'm saying. Put it this way: I mean, I trust Jared Goff to get us to where we need to get. Got to win 3 games, man. He can do it. You know what I'm saying. I don't. He's not even a question anymore. He was, you know what I'm saying, but I don't feel that like I get what you're saying about him maybe not having a good game and maybe us losing the game. I get it, but I think that this team is battle tested enough. Hell, we going out there with half a defense on a regular basis and winning. So I think they can overcome. I know it's not 5 interceptions against the Texans. I know 5 interceptions in this game will be a loss. You know what I'm saying? That type of thing. That put it this way, he doesn't have to be laser sharp to beat the Commanders, but he's got to be on it, man. NFC Championship game, Super Bowl. He's got to be like MVP mode, damn near. You know what I'm saying? I hope he took it personal that he's kind of like out of the MVP discussion. I think that that's going to be something. I think that just wanting to get back to the Super Bowl with the team that he got traded to, that's a situation. Especially if they play the Rams next week. If we both win, that's another a developing story that could happen that can give him extra motivation out there. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, to answer your question, I'm totally comfortable with golf, but he has to be 90%, man. He's got to be on it. The mistakes, I mean, it's got to be to a minimum, man. You know what I'm saying? For me, But I trust her. I believe that Walt. I think, and then I'll let Ted take it away. I don't. I don't think other teams can stop us, man. That's how I feel about it. I just feel like if we do what we're set out to do, what we have been doing, it's going to be a bear to stop. That goes for Philly. That goes for whoever else comes in here. I believe that's it. Jared Goff is a big catalyst of that. So
Yeah, great points, Ashante. And I think the same thing. And obviously, I know Jared. I love Jared. He's one of my favorite guys I've ever been around. Jared is cool, calm, collected. He's not going to let the pressure weigh on him. But Walt, I know what you're saying, because when you look at this, when you get the bye week, it's one of these things. It's a dichotomy. There's the good side of you get rest, you get healthy, you get all these guys back that are feeling a little bit better, but you get that rustiness. You get that, hey, we haven't played in a week, couple weeks. All right, are we meshing? Knowing the Detroit Lions, the first thing I would do in those situations, I've had them a couple times in my career, we spike the team. We're going good on good. We got the first O versus the first D. We're not going live. We're not tackling, but we're going like thud. We're going full speed to the ground, practice to where we're going fast and tempo. Those are the things that I'm assuming the Detroit Lions did this past week. And then you look at what Jared has to do this week. The Washington Commanders, good defense. But you look and you project out, and I love what Ashante said. I'm almost a little bit more concerned with the LA Rams, the way Chris Shula, it's Don Shula's grandsons, their defensive coordinator, the way their defense has played the second half of the season and into the playoffs. I mean, Vic Fangio's got Philly's defense playing out of their minds too. But you look at both of those, the LA team, that matchup would be tough. And then you have the Jared situation, right? It's Sean, they traded him away. Then you got that. You got Brad Holmes. You got Ray Agnew, the assistant GM. You got all these LA connections. You have all those things working behind the scenes. So now does that become bigger than it needs to be? I don't think it'll get too big for Jared, but I know what you're saying, Walt. It's a serious consideration. So if there's that get back on track game, it's this week. It's Washington, and then Philly or LA. Those are two significantly different defenses that they're going to have to go against. But once again, I think Ben Johnson, I think with Jared, with the weapons that they have on offense, the offensive line, those things will take care of themselves. They're set up to win this thing.
So, how often, because you've been around this for a long time, how often does it move past 2 or 3 games? No, because we had the very first game, not the very first game, but the very first year to rebuild. Stafford went to LA, Goff was here. We went to LA, they destroyed us. We won the last 2. So they've played 3 games already. Do you think Goff is still caught up in all of this? McVay's caught up in it. Stafford's still caught up in it. It seems like Kelly Stafford may be still a little bit caught up in it. But I mean, it seems like the fans and the media seem to be more still caught up in it. Now, don't get me wrong. I do believe if the Rams won this week and we won, do I believe Stafford has a little bit extra edge? Will love to beat us? Sure. Will we love to beat him? Sure. But does that type of animosity, and I don't think it's necessarily animosity between Stafford and the Fords at all, or Goff and McVay for this man. I think they're both moved past that. But for fans who are out here who think, okay, if the Rams win, he's aiming to cut our hearts out and this and that. It's been 3 games they've played already. Like, does that really last that long to 4, 5, 6 matchups?
Yeah, Walt, it lasts a career. It lasts a lifetime. It does not go away. And it's not, I agree with you. It's not animosity, because I know I spent a lot of years here with Matthew, with Stafford, and he loves the place. He loves Detroit. I mean, he's done some great things for the community. It's not that. And Jared's the same way in LA. We went to Super Bowls. Like it's amazing. It's not animosity, but it's still that thing in the back of your head. You're a competitor. You're a type A personality. I show up, I want to kick your ass. You're telling me I'm not with you anymore. Now this is my crew. This is my team. I'm showing up to do what I need to do, and you're in my way right now. It's more that. It's not this animosity. There's extra feelings there, but I think both guys are going to feel it. I think the further you get away from it, the calmer you can remain, but it's still back there. I guarantee. Coming into Ford Field for Matthew, Jared taking on the LA, he sees that logo. It's still in their heads. It's still Brad Holmes is thinking about it. He's looking across, and it's not animosity. He just wants to beat Les Snead because GM versus GM, he wants to show
Yeah.
you that he has a better roster. And Les wants to. It's competitiveness, man. That's the beauty about the NFL, about sports in general. We're all competitive, and that's one of the things that never dies.
Yeah, Ted's right. Yup, I was thinking the same thing. Just what Ted said about, because now Jared could say, "Listen, you didn't get us. You didn't. Well, Jared had already check off the division win, 2 straight division wins, right? Only thing he hasn't checked off yet was to get the team to the Super Bowl that Stafford did do. So I think it is a little bit of a grudge match, a little bit of tug of war between those two. You know what I'm saying? It's a healthy one though. It's not, like you said. I don't think they not sleeping at night because they worried about it. But I think, if they cross paths again, it'll be worth talking about. It's noteworthy to bring.
Oh
it
yeah,
up.
because there's a lot of moving variables. Like as
Mhm.
Jared Goff, I know in the back of my mind, McVay's over there telling his defensive coordinator all of my weaknesses. He still thinks I'm not this and I'm not that. It happens. I can imagine that it happens. 15 years after everybody's retired and everything. Remember when you gave up on me? So
Ted, I want to
it
ask Ted
happens.
about one injury that you never hear it no more. What the hell is turf toe? What is that? Is it like your nail coming off your toe? Is that what that is?
It's a good question. So it's a ligament. You look on the bottom of the toe. If you're taking a finger, it's that ligament on the bottom. You look at that extreme extension. It
Uh-huh.
stresses that ligament that's on the backside of your toe underneath. So once that happens, the problem with that, Ashante, every step you take. Once again, we talked about it a little bit earlier about the foot injuries. You're in contact with the ground at all times. So in a sport like you're on your feet. So every time you go into plantar flexion, so dorsiflexion when you flex your toes up, plantar flexion when you get up in like a calf raise position, every time you get extended, so you're in that dorsiflex position, and then you have to put pressure in through, especially that big toe, that dominant toe. That pain is excruciating. It's actually something I dealt with in college. I had it when I was playing at Toledo. It's one of the worst pains I've ever experienced in my life. And it's one of those ones that just continuously comes back. It doesn't really go away. You can shoot it up. You can do a couple different things, but it's one of those things. It just continuously bothers you. It's every step you take one cut, you get into an extreme extended position, and then you try to drive off that toe, and you literally want to cripple to the ground. You want to crumble. And it's like, what the hell is wrong with my foot? That's the worst pain ever. It's not a fun injury. It's one of those ones that's not talked about a lot. It's a little bit less extensive now because we have these ramp up protocols, but it's something that
Oh,
still impacts guys.
yeah. Okay. Because I was
Took
wondering, because you
down
don't
Deion
hear.
Sanders.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. You don't hear that much, that injury anymore. That's why I asked the question. So wow, man.
Great question.
You know.
All right, Ted. Let's get down to some Washington Commander stuff. Dan Quinn, one of my favorite coaches in the league. We discussed Dan Quinn over the offseason. Like, I think, matter of fact, right before the season started, when we did our season preview show, we were talking about Washington and the odds of the Commanders potentially being one of those teams that jumps up and maybe becomes the Detroit Lions of this season. I don't think anyone had the idea that they would go from 4 wins under Sam Howell and Ron Rivera to 12 wins under a veteran head coach in Dan Quinn and Jaden Daniels, but I had them somewhere around 9 wins, ceiling wise. You just never know with a rookie quarterback. We saw CJ Stroud and D'Amico Ryans, that combination had success last year in Houston, but it really is a gamble when it comes to new head coach. Even though Dan Quinn wasn't a brand new head coach, he took Atlanta to a Super Bowl, but new head coach in Washington, new GM, brand new rookie quarterback. Roster is still kind of desolate of talent, but Dan Quinn has done a damn good job this season turning them around. The defense as well as the offense. This was a defense that committed 32 turnovers last year, which is beyond atrocious. I don't even understand how you average 2.5 turnovers a game at all, but he got that intact. They only had 16 turnovers this year. So that's a dramatic turnaround. But what do you think about the job Dan Quinn has done in Washington?
I don't think you speak highly enough of it. Honestly, we talk about this. It's usually the surprise team that gets coach of the year. Now, I'm a little bit more on the opposite side. I think a guy like Dan Campbell should be under consideration for that. I know Kevin O'Connell's probably going to win it, but a guy like Dan Quinn with what he's done, exactly the statistics you just quoted, well, that's incredible. You talk about that. He's changed the culture in 1 year. You look at the slow, methodical process it took Dan and the Lions to build it. Dan Quinn did that in effect in 1 year in a pretty tough division. The NFC North is above everyone right now, but the NFC East was that division a couple years ago when we went to the Super Bowl when I was in Philly. I mean, we had 3 teams in the playoffs. You had all these teams competing that were all legitimate contenders. He came in and flipped it. But then I think you have to expand out. Cliff Kingsbury has meant a great deal to a guy like Jaden Daniels. You look at what they've done. They hired Bobby Johnson, an offensive line coach. He was a coach in Detroit for a short time. You look at some of the other assistant coaches that they have there. They have a lot of talent there. And then you look at Lance Newmark, their assistant GM. He was a Detroit Lions guy. He's worked in the personnel office for about 20 years in Detroit. Lance is probably going to get a GM job in this cycle. So you look at some of those guys. There's talent all across the board. And what's the common denominator? They changed ownership within the last couple of years. Dan Snyder sold the team, and you look at what the Harris Blitzer group has been able to do. These are guys that came in with a plan. They hired Adam Peters as the GM. They hired Dan Quinn, and they said, here's how we want to build it. But the thing, Walt, that you can't discredit, this is what I love about football, and especially, what I've been able to do for 2 decades, scouting talent and scouting and evaluating guys like Jaden Daniels. So we brought in this company. It was a 3D, it's basically virtual reality. It's this different system for quarterbacks and offenses, but also defenses. You can input your entire playbook into the system, and then the players can get these free reps. And we call free reps anything where you don't have to take the physical tax on your body, but you can still go through the route progressions. You can still go through your checkdowns if you're the quarterback. So we go through this company, and they bring in a couple people from LSU. I'm not going to say their names; they're great friends, but they didn't give me permission to, so I won't throw them out there. But they were like, "Hey, Jaden uses this religiously." I'm like, "All right, tell me about Jaden," because we always go into the draft profile. We go into, all right, what type of kid is this? They told me about this kid. They're like, he comes back at 8 p.m. after classes, after practice, after everything. He works for 2.5 more hours every single night. Then he takes the system home. He's doing it in the morning. We can track this and log. He's doing it at 5:30 in the morning. This kid is getting 3 extra practices a week because he's literally doing it on his own. He wants to be great. And that reminds the Calvin Johnsons of the world that I've been around, Aaron Donald, some of the best ever at what they've done. They had that same mentality. And you give me a guy like Jaden Daniels, I'm going to bet on a guy like that because that kid is made of the right stuff. And then you put him in a good culture with a good head coach, Dan Quinn, who's been to a Super Bowl but failed miserably. He got his butt kicked in the second half. You don't think that's still in his head? He's still thinking about that. I guarantee it. I know friends that were on that staff. That hangs with you. And then you get Cliff Kingsbury, same thing. He's trying to reinvent himself, try to get another head job. All these factors circulating in one organization, that's a dangerous team. But that quarterback, you can't discredit what he's meant to this team.
Yeah. I mean, do you think the recent success of the super seniors, Jaden Daniels, Bo Nix, Michael Penix, all 3 of those guys were also transfers? All 3 of those guys played 5 years of college football, 5+. All 3 of them got to the playoffs. Caleb Williams, super talented. Drake May, super talented. Went to lesser opportune situations. Were kind of thrown into situations. Hey, go make it happen. Top 5 pick. Struggled like hell. Mm-hmm. Now I will say this: I think Caleb Williams throughout the season, Caleb Williams' overall talent showed, and that typically happens with like really talented players. Mm-hmm. They may play like shit all season, or they may be boiling in the pot of shit all season. That's what I call bad organization. So he may be boiling in the pot of shit, but you can still see his talent shine through all of that all season. I think Caleb Williams ultimately will be okay. I think he's talented enough to overcome the Bears. Now, how much winning ultimately will he do with Chicago? I don't know if that's me. Is that me? I'm not ultimately sure how much winning Caleb will, over the long haul, do with Chicago. Hopefully none. with us, but I do think he's going to be a good player. But do you think teams, because for a while it seemed like GMs were allergic to seniors.
Yeah.
You know, if you were a senior quarterback, that was like being a non one and done in college basketball. You know, why are you hanging around so long? But seeing that these guys who played 4 years, played 5 years, do you think now teams are going to start coming back around and selecting some of those guys and not being so scared off?
I think they're actually going to see it as an advantage because, Walt, when you look at it, the NFL system has become college football now, except it's unlimited free agency. So what we look for, we used to take a dart and throw it and say, I think this player is going to be good. They've been in the system. How do you know? They haven't had money yet. Now the kids get money. Now the kids transfer, so they've had multiple systems they've had to learn. You know what that is? That's the NFL. You look at all the traction, you look at how many coaching changes you have, and then you're giving these kids these big contracts. You got kids staying in college now because they're getting guaranteed 4, 5, 6 million for 1 year as a quarterback. If you're not a top 16 pick, don't leave. Stay and get that money. Get paid while you can and take care of your family. And still, you're in a different system because you probably transferred to get that paycheck. So you went from Baylor to Alabama or whatever the situation is. So I actually think it's going to help NFL scouts. It's going to help us be able to determine what the future outlook is a little bit better and more accurately because we get to test all those things before they actually get thrown in the fire of the NFL. So I do think it's going to sway on that side. And I'm with you. I think Caleb's a good quarterback. And I think some of the Drake, same thing. It's just going to take time. And I look at those kids, I'll look at them completely different moving forward when we scout and we evaluate talent because I want to know how are they going to handle the money? How are they going to handle coaching changes? Now you get kids that transfer 2-3 times. It answers all those questions. So it should be, it's drafting is never a perfect science, but it should be a little bit easier to answer some of those questions.
Shanti?
Yeah, I totally agree. Just on the trajectory, the path, Washington as an organization, I'm sitting here thinking to myself, now this is a team that repeatedly pissed away draft picks under Dan Snyder. And I'm looking at their draft. I had to look it up. And they're upcoming for 2025. I mean, they actually parlayed about 4 draft picks. They got a 3rd round from the Dolphins, a 5th round from the Saints, 2 sevens, 1 from the Falcons, 1 from the Eagles. This team's going to have 7 new faces on the team next year, as well as free agency. Dan Quinn building something good, man. You look at this team, Walt, 6 games this year. They've scored over 34 points, and their offense is not even ready yet. You know what I'm saying? They still, when a baby chicken is sitting on that egg, a baby bird sitting on that egg, they waiting on it to hatch, and they not even hatched the egg yet, man. This is a team they're sitting on a 6-game winning streak. They haven't lost since November 24th. Their average margin of loss in their 5 losses, Walt, is averaged out to about 8 points a game. So they're losing games by 1 score under 10 points, man. That's a team that's on their ascending. Whether if they lose this game or not, the Washington Commanders are in damn good hands right now. You know what I'm saying? Finally, they have a competent coach that's changed this thing. And then, like Ted just eloquently put it, and you did, you get a quarterback, dude. That's your ticket
That's the
right there.
key.
That
Yeah.
speeds up a lot of things. You can have deficiencies. That's why he's in this game, right? Because they have deficiencies, but hell, they got that guy at quarterback, man. And I'm gonna be God's honest truth. He's good. You know what I'm saying? He's that guy right now. You know what I'm saying? So of
Yeah.
course,
I
like
don't
we
think
was
it's a
talking,
fluke.
yeah, we was talking in the pre-show. Now he does have to CJ Stroud. Bo Nix is gonna see a lot of stuff next year that he might have not seen, gameplay. It's a lot of tape on him now. You know what I'm saying? So excuse me, guys. It might look a little different next year, but boy, Dan Quinn's got a damn good start. Not saying that they probably was expecting to be not in the playoffs, but man, to actually be in the playoffs and win a playoff game, that whole term you playing with house money, I think applies to the Commanders right now. Dan Dan Quinn. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I think they're The recipe is kind of simple. They're great on third down, they're great on fourth down, and their quarterback doesn't turn the ball over. So they win games. It's the recipe doesn't change, man. I think sometimes some of these coordinators they try to constantly reinvent the wheel. People have constantly trashed our defense and trashed AG all season, talking about the yards given up and this and that. They were still top 5 in third down defense, and they were still top 5 in red zone. Those are pretty much the main things you really want to care about. Not to say that you don't, you want teams just constantly moving the ball up and down the field on you, but if teams can move the ball between the 20s, but once they get after the 20s, you suffocate them, that's really all that matters. Because field goals in the NFL are only going to get you so far at the end of the day. But all right, man, we had a great show, but we got to get this prediction out of you, Ted. What do you think about this game this weekend?
I think Detroit handles it. If I got to throw a score, I'd go 34-23. I think they take it over. I think offensively they control the line of scrimmage. I think they just handle it. I think it's one-sided.
Yeah,
I'm not giving my prediction till Saturday morning.
You want to wait till Saturday? Okay,
definitely.
Wait till Saturday. Put up Ted's resume up there, man. Let everybody see. Let
everybody see who
Ted the GOAT out here. Look at Ted. What? Look at that.
Absolutely. Strength and conditioning coach, 2 NFL strength and conditioning coach of the year. Was on the staff 29 to 2015. Our Detroit Lions, Miami Dolphins in 2016. Rams 2017 to 2019. Held 2 different titles there. And you still with the Eagles right now?
I'm out. So we'll see what happens. We'll see. Maybe I'll come back home to Detroit. Never know, Walt.
We gotta send.
Man, we need you back, man. We need you back.
Yeah, Ted. That don't sit well with me. I'm about to. Yeah. We gonna handle that.
We
gonna handle that.
Phone calls.
Yeah.
But Ted, let everyone know exactly where they can find you, man. I'm already subscribed to your YouTube channel.
Yeah,
I appreciate it, Walt. Appreciate it, Ashante. Ted Rath Strength Coach. That's the YouTube handle, and then all socials, same thing. Ted Rath Strength Coach or Ted Rath on all socials: Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, all that. But YouTube is at Ted Rath Strength Coach. TedRath.com. Got a book out, some Detroit Lions stories on that. Beyond Comfort, Amazon, BarnesandNoble.com. You can get that there. Some good football stories in that one too.
Wow, been a pleasure, man.
Dynamite.
Oh, yeah, Ted, can you come back for our draft shows? I mean, we're gonna do a bunch of draft stuff, so man, we gotta have you back, man. You know what I'm saying?
We can jump in there. No, this has been fun. This has been awesome, man. I appreciate you guys.
Yeah.
Hopefully the draft shows don't start next week.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, I'm just joking, man. We got it. Yep. Like I said, I want to thank everyone for joining us tonight. We had everything live in the chat. I do apologize, wasn't really able to get to all the comments tonight as we normally would. Did want to give Ted the floor tonight to really display exactly what he knows in this business that we love in the NFL. I think he helped out tremendously as far as, especially on the injuries,
Yeah, amazing.
Because when it comes to these injuries, as fans, we're ignorant to all of this stuff. We don't know anything. But it does help to have someone around from time to time who does know exactly what's going on and has some pretty genuine insight. So, Ted, we really do appreciate you coming on, man.
Yeah,
tremendously.
Amazing. Yeah.
And appreciate you for being a Lions fan, for sure.
Appreciate you guys. Thank you. It's been fun.
Yep. All right, till next time, one pride.